It's great to hear the hubbub, but I think the time has turned for us to start this evening. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome here tonight to this important moment for the work of the Transition Plan Taskforce. Now, I'm Alison Gowman. I'm one of the City of London Corporation's elected representatives, and I've myself been working for many years, a few decades indeed, on all issues around sustainability and energy, leading to the City of London Corporation committing to promoting green finance and impact investing, and also creating a really radical climate action plan. But we also, as the corporation, support many other aspects around finance and business. And this, the TPT, the Transition Plan Taskforce, is one of those very important groundbreaking initiatives. So thank you very much for joining us here in person. I think this is the first major event that the TPT have held in this year. And the theme is taking your business from pledges to plans, perhaps tasking as well, but taking your business from pledges to plans. And this is a key differentiator for this task force. It's about action as well as thought. And the City of London likes nothing better than focusing on and marking these very important occasions, especially in support of initiatives like this that encourages growth and a green transition. Surely these are the markers of a thriving economy, and one that we definitely want to encourage now. London is a globally leading city with aspirations to be the greenest global financial centre, and TPT is a key initiative to support this. As you realise, this is a pivotal time for TPT as the consultation phase is coming to a close and the next phase of work is announced. The scene is set here for those announcements. Tonight, therefore, is a key moment for the market to really get going on those transition plans, using the TPT's work to help you on your way. And I hope that's why all of you, and there are a lot of you, are here tonight, ready to take the actions that are needed, and those indeed that will be demanded of you and are required. The TPT's draft disclosure framework and implementation guidance are really fantastic starting points for preparing companies, for laying out recommendations to develop a gold standard transition plan, and including in those frameworks and guidance notes a whole chapter to focus on the 4 key stages of preparing that plan. Now, the final recommendations of TPT will be published later in this year, but as you'll hear tonight, the time for action is now. So do keep up the engagement and tell TPT if there's more that you want to understand or you want to contribute. I hope you'll engage fully tonight and stay for drinks after the conversations on the stage, but I believe you still then have 24 hours in which to submit any further thoughts. So what's critical tonight is that we hear from the amazing people that have been committing so much time to these plans and to the task force over the last few months, including the TPT chairs, Amanda Blanc and Baroness Penn. And there are other leaders here from the Bank of England, the FCA, and many businesses in the real economy looking at how the transition plans can actually drive value in their businesses. So thank you again for joining us. I hope you really do have a fantastic evening. And I'd like to hand over to the first co-chair of the TPT, Amanda Blanc, also CEO of Aviva. Amanda, scene is yours.
Thank you so much, Alison, for hosting us here tonight. What an absolutely beautiful space to come together in, and actually humbling to be in a building which is even older than Aviva. So apparently the Guildhall was already 250 years old when Aviva's first business sprung up down the road in 1696. So this place is steeped in history and is a legacy of business leaders of the past. But we're here to talk today about the legacy that our generation will leave behind. So it's absolutely brilliant to see so many of you here turning out on a Monday evening to talk about transition plans, because these plans are going to be the most important legacy that any of us can leave behind. When we kicked off the work last year, we couldn't have imagined that there would be so much interest in the work, both here and around the world. Even the G20 is talking transition plans these days. So we're in very good company, and the momentum is clearly building. But that momentum cannot be maintained with hope. It must be fed by our activities, our will to change, our ability to think beyond our own businesses. In short, if any of us are serious about making the transition, we must get moving. We need to give it a go and start figuring out what our transition plans look like. We also need to engage with each other and get involved in the TPT. None of us have done anything like this before, so we need to lean on and learn from each other as we plot our individual and collective paths. And finally, we need to use our influence to encourage others down the same path. If one of us successfully transitions to carbon neutral, that's a great achievement. But if we are bringing others along with us as we do so, that starts to feel like real change. So it's a year now since we at Aviva announced our first transition plan, explaining how we would try to meet our 2040 net zero ambition across all of the key areas of our business. I said it at the time and I'll say it again now. Our plan is not perfect. No plan is. But it has turbocharged action on net zero across Aviva. And it gave us a platform to help build the UK framework that we'll be discussing tonight, as well as the parallel global framework created by GFANZ. We learned how to create a transition plan by doing one, and it helped us connect parts of the business in ways that had never happened before. And we know that we're playing our part in our aim to help the UK become the most climate-ready country in the world by 2030. That all started with a blank piece of paper. We had absolutely no idea how we were going to do it, but we knew we had to start somewhere. So I'll say it again to all of you, give it a go. Secondly, get involved. You do not need to do your transition plan alone. The TPT is there to help, not only through the draft guidance that will be discussed this evening, but also by connecting all the different businesses producing transition plans within and across sectors. So I urge you all to be open and to look for ways that you can help one another. Your transition plan will definitely be stronger for it, and so will the work of the task force. To support transition plan preparation, the TPT launched a sandbox at COP27. This tested the framework with a group of large UK companies. Today, the TPT is launching a call for proposals for the next phase of the sandbox. This will support both users and preparers of transition plans. Developers with ideas across a range of capabilities can submit their proposals on the TPT website. This is part of an effort to ensure that the TPT drives transition plans across the whole economy. I'm also happy to announce that we are also welcoming 3 new members to the TPT delivery group, Diageo, SSE and Railpen. We're really looking forward to hearing more from SSE on the second panel this evening. More and more firms are getting involved. If you're not, now is the time to take the plunge. Finally, use your influence. I think it can be too easy for us to remain narrowly focused on our own net zero targets without considering the wider context. But we are all connected and we all have influence. Talk to your suppliers, the companies that you invest in and do business with, and encourage them to produce their own transition plan. If every business, including ourselves, is feeling the pressure and taking the support on offer, we have a real chance of making this work and influencing wider society in the process. Because this doesn't need to be restricted to companies. I'm really hoping that in 2023, we will start to see transition plans at every level, with countries and international institutions developing their own routes towards a carbon-neutral future. Chris Skidmore MP has even recommended that the UK delivers its own whole-of-economy transition plan in his review last month. I'll be asking Baroness Penn maybe a little bit more about that later. So for me, this is the most exciting and important thing about transition plans. The goal is massive, but we are all learning and moving together. Finance firms, other corporates, governments, and regulators. So I'm going to let you get into the detail now, but at the end of the evening, I hope that you'll all be comfortable and confident to ask yourself, will I give it a go? Will I get involved? And will I use my influence? It's up to us in this room to make this happen, and the transition is vital. So to be frank, everyone in the room must leave being able to answer those questions in the affirmative. If not, let's talk. There's no shame, there's no judgment, and no one way of doing this. It's tough and it's going to get tougher, but we've got each other to turn to. So let's do that every step of the way until the transition has been completed. So with that, it is my very, very great pleasure to hand over to my TPT Co-Chair, Baroness Penn, or as I'm assume that she wants to be called, Jojo.
Thank you, Amanda, and thanks to everyone for coming this evening. And I come from the House of Lords. It's Jojo rather than Baroness Penn, but even then I can still feel a sense of occasion and grandeur in this setting. And I'm really pleased to be here tonight because it's the first event that I've had the chance to address since becoming co-chair of the Transition Plan Taskforce. And I completely agree with Amanda about the importance of transition plans. They will help us move from disclosure and reporting to action. And as Amanda said, it doesn't mean that we're going to get it right the first time. We're going to learn by doing. And she was completely right to challenge the government on what we're doing. When we set out our expectations of firms, we also need to ask ourselves, how are we getting on? What are we doing? How are we articulating our own transition plan too? But it is also important to recognise the progress we've made so far in this area. At COP26, we announced that the UK would move towards making it mandatory for firms to publish transition plans. And in January last year, rules for asset managers, asset owners, and listed companies with comply or explain requirements were put in place to publish transition plans. But we were aware that a gold standard for transition plans didn't yet exist, and that's why we launched the Transition Plan Taskforce last April, to create that gold standard. And the TPT has done fantastic work since its establishment, nothing to do with me, as I only took over as co-chair only recently. It's produced a draft disclosure framework and implementation guidance, which was launched for consultation at COP27. And I'd like to thank the many of you here in this room for the work that you've done to support TPT to get to this point. These documents were welcomed at COP27 and are a huge step forward in setting out clear recommendations for the preparation and disclosure of high-quality plans. This includes recommendations for transition plans to be a core part of your business strategy, and I welcome the progress the market is making on this. We're starting to see more transition plans in the market and more boards having strategic conversations about their forward-looking transition plans. And that means that more businesses will be well prepared to adapt as we transition to a low-carbon economy. But I support Amanda's comments that we need more businesses to come forward with transition plans and to use the TPT's recommendations and guidance to support this. The expansion of the sandbox that Amanda announced today will also support this work. Beyond transition planning, the TPT is also supporting the government's work by informing the implementation of the Sustainability Disclosure Requirements, or SDR. As announced in 2021, SDR is a new set of economy-wide reporting requirements which will see businesses disclosing how they impact and are impacted by climate and the environment. SDR will also incorporate the global baseline sustainability standards being developed by the ISSB. And I can announce today that in order to inform the development of the SDR, key government departments and regulators will join the TPT as observers. This will see the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, Department for Work and Pensions, the new Department for Business and Trade, the Financial Reporting Council, the Pensions Regulator join as observers alongside the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, which is already an observer. This will enable us to stay joined up as we take forward work on SDR, helping us to achieve our goal of ensuring that information is available for every financial decision to take climate and the environment into account. And in the time that I've been in politics, which must be coming on for 20 years, a request for joined-up government must be one of the most common themes of feedback that I've heard from business. The first phase of TPT's work in 2022 considered the links between emissions reductions and wider sustainability topics. But both in the UK and internationally, we are seeing increased demand for guidance on transition plans and wider sustainability issues. So I'm pleased to announce that the TPT will also launch new working groups on nature, adaptation, and just transition. The TPT will consider the results of the working groups to explore how these areas could inform its future work. And the Taskforce's new nature working group, for example, will consider how nature and biodiversity considerations will need to inform just transition planning. To be successful, TPT cannot just be instrumental in informing transition planning regulation in the UK. It needs to work internationally to support coherence in global transition plan standards. To this end, the TPT's final framework, released later this year, will build directly on the ISSB's final baseline standards. And the TPT is also working with other jurisdictions who are looking to implement transition plan requirements. The government shares this mission with the TPT and will advocate for its work in all that it does when it engages internationally too. So it's been a great year for the TPT, and I look forward to seeing the progress that we can all make together in 2023. So I'd like to thank you for the work that you've done so far and look forward to working with you in the future. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Kate Levick to chair what looks to be a really interesting panel on developing transition plans.